Welcome to episode 26 of the LAN Partners Podcast. I'm your host, Connor, and I got Matt this week.
Hello.
And no Dave. It's Dave's birthday, so he thought he was super cool to take the day off, so we gave him a break, and he's just chilling at home, listening to the LAN Partners Podcast all by himself. So we are no Dave this week, but the fun won't stop. Today is Halloween. We're recording today on Halloween. You'll be listening to this the day after Halloween, but we're still going to keep this theme going for today's episode about spooky Halloween games. So today, Matt is going to tell us all about Evil Within, since the Evil Within 2 released, I believe.
Just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, not too long ago. So Evil Within 2 is out there, so Matt's going to talk about Evil Within 1. I'm going to talk about Until Dawn a little bit with Matt, and our discussion topic for today is the state of the superhero game, the superhero genre, like the games in that genre, and the couple news stories, couple good ones. And the list for today is top games Connor and Matt have co-opted together. Who we are are three gamers who have full-time jobs, families, and other hobbies. Our goal for this podcast is to give suggestions of games for people who don't have a lot of time to game, so that precious hour or two you have to game isn't wasted on something that you don't even like. We talk about new and old games so you can find the best game that fits your style. Please download the podcast by Apple app, Stitcher, Google Play for you Android users, or go on iTunes and hit subscribe. That way you get our weekly episodes uploaded to you every Wednesday. If you have questions, discussion topics, or list ideas, please message us on Facebook, send an email, thelandpartners@gmail.com, or leave a comment. Speaking of comments, we were left a comment on our episode last week on YouTube. User Stronglikemountain said, "Love you, love the show. Top horror for me, number 1, Resident Evil 1. Number 2, Silent Hill 1. Number 3, Alien Isolation. Honorable mention, Outlast, can't rank it top 3 since I can't play more than 15 minutes of it because it's too scary."
Sounds about right.
And the playable trailer for Silent Hills didn't rank because it's not a complete game. Thank you for the comments, Stronglikemountain. I'm 99% sure that is Jake, my buddy Jake. But we really appreciate the comments. If you like what you heard out of Jake, please leave us comments on any episode. We'd love to read it to our other listeners. It's great. One more thing before we jump into Evil Within. I got something special for you here, Matt. Just give me 1 second.
I think I know what's coming.
Oh, it's not working here. Oh, wait, here we go.
Are you getting Mario Odyssey at launch? I'm not. I traditionally don't buy single-player games at launch because there's no reason to. I usually wait for those to go on sale. But are you getting Mario?
So, as of last week, you were not getting Mario Odyssey at launch. Matt, what happened?
Correct. I bought Mario Odyssey on launch.
You did more than that. You pre-ordered it, did you not?
I had our buddy Tony pick it up for me at Best Buy because he is on that the gamer club, so he got the discount for me. But it was on the launch day. I saw those reviews. I saw that it was getting 10s across the board from every major gaming critic site, and I just couldn't hold back any longer.
Yeah, and if you remember, if you go back to last week's episode, I gave it a LAN partner guarantee. Not you, but I gave it a LAN partner guarantee that Dave was going to get it before this week's episode dropped. He was too embarrassed to show his face because he got it on the launch day, so that's why he's not here today, because he was too embarrassed to be
That's the real
here.
reason.
Yes. So he did get it on launch. You got it on launch. And so we're going to be talking Mario Odyssey hopefully a little bit next week with Dave, just to kind of pick your brains a little bit, or at least in the next couple episodes we'll talk a little bit Mario Odyssey. So let's go ahead and jump into some reviews. Matt, tell us all about Evil Within.
Evil Within, cue the creepy music. So Evil Within, it's a third-person survival horror game. So kind of the same vibes as maybe a Resident Evil type game, just in terms of how the camera's set up and the gameplay. The developer was Tango Gameworks, published by Bethesda. Came out in October 14th, 2014. So we're looking at about 3 years old now at this point. Little fun fact, it was directed by the Resident Evil series creator, which his name is Shinji Mikami. Excuse me. And so that's, I mean, you can clearly see the relation to the Resident Evil series in the Evil Within game. And basically, You play as this character, Sebastian. The game starts out where you're investigating. You're a police officer. You're investigating with your partner mass shooting at a hospital. And as soon as you get to the hospital, you hear this kind of high-pitched ringing noise. And that's when the game basically starts. You get kind of transformed into this alternate world or not. Depends. I mean, it's the whole story. And that's when all the freaky, weird stuff starts going on. And so typical survival horror type game. You do use guns. You can use melee weapons as well. You're always short on ammo, short on supplies. You can use things to heal yourself. Always short on those things as well. So it's always keeping the game tense because you're trying to figure out if you should waste your time shooting at something or if you should try to take it out some other way because you want to save your bullets for somebody stronger. The game is just very scary. It does a good job of setting. It's more of kind of a psychological type scary. I think there are some kind of jump scare type moments in the game, but it is mostly kind of a psychological where you're just walking through, getting in your own head. What's around this corner? What am I running from? What's about to happen if I open this door? Things like that. You're kind of getting in your own head. So the game does a very good job of that. Another good thing about the game is since it is directed by the Resident Evil series creator, there is a lot of good puzzles in the game. So the game is good at setting up little areas where you need to do something in order to get to the next spot. And there are some tricky kind of puzzles in the game. And it does really good at there's just the survival part of the game is really good. So you do, even though you are short on ammo and short on supplies, you do find a way to kind of move forward and keep the game going, albeit for an exception, which I will get to. Which that is kind of a con, so it can be seen either way. So yes, the game is advertised as a survival horror game, but at the same time, I think it can be a little too challenging, and maybe that's just me. I like to consider myself like relatively experienced when it comes to these types of games, because I've played all the Resident Evils and I've played other survival horror type games. But in this game in particular, I felt like it was just extra scarce with the ammo. I don't know if it was just the difficulty I was playing on or what, but I ended up getting to a point at the very end of the game. I ended up looking up what to do in a walkthrough because I was stuck. And I figured out that I was on the final boss of the game, but I ran out of ammo and I had no supplies. I had nothing to heal myself with, anything like that. So it was virtually impossible for me to finish the game because I just had no supplies. It just wasn't going to happen. I couldn't punch the boss to death. So
where did you go wrong up to that? I remember you talking about that.
Know.
Like, how could a player prevent that from happening to them? Were you just so insane with your ammo or something where you weren't being careful?
That's the thing. Yeah, I was trying to think about that. I wonder if there must have been a spot where maybe I didn't perform too well and I used up all my stuff, or I got too nervous and used up all my stuff when I shouldn't have. I don't know, but either way, I feel like the game should kind of prevent that from happening.
There's got to be some sort of like fail-safe where
right.
Something that they were doing while they were testing the game out where people were like, I can't beat this boss because I don't have any ammo left. Like, how are you have other people had these problems where they're like, I have no ammo, I can't do this?
Hey, you know what? I never looked it up, but I would be curious to find out if other people have had the same issue because it's extremely frustrating. I made it all the way through this game, basically white knuckle gripping my controller because I'm so scared the whole time. And then I finally get to the end and I can't get through it and finish it and see what the final cutscene brings me or what ends up happening to my character. So that was pretty frustrating, but I ended up just having to put the game down. I had to walk away because I didn't. If you know me, like Connor does, I'm not one to replay anything. Like I don't like to go through the same areas twice. I don't like to start things over. That's very frustrating for me. It's kind of a pet peeve. So there was no way I was gonna like load up on a different chapter and try to get to it again.
Could you have done that though? Could you just reload like the last hour or two and then?
Yeah, I think it was possible to pick like which chapter you wanted to go into. Like once you pass them, you could just choose the individual chapters that you could go into.
Still annoying.
Yeah, I would never. For me personally, I would never want to do that. Other people might be more forgiving, but not me. So that was definitely a huge con for me. And then the other con was just there was a lot of just performance issues in the game that I was able to look past, but they were pretty glaring. If you look at most reviews for this game, everyone pretty much talks about it. So they're able to, I think on PC they had better frame rates, but I played on PS4. And it was just really like choppy. It had a lot of moments that were really busy with like stuff on screen. And sometimes there wasn't even anything on screen and the game would run really slow or laggy. And there was really no explanation for that other than they just didn't really spend as much time. I'm big on performance and visuals, so that did hinder my experience quite a bit because I like to see things moving smoothly. But overall, I gave the game a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a good game, even though I wasn't able to finish it. I think it was a good game. It's not something that I would go back to, probably. I do want to check out Evil Within 2. I think that that game's been getting really good reviews, so I think Evil Within kind of was, their maybe not an experiment, but it was just their way of, trying something new. And then once they got to something new, now they're able to kind of work on it and perfect it a little bit with Evil Within 2. So I think in the future, I'll definitely pick up Evil Within 2.
Yeah, and you could definitely tell with a game like Evil Within 2 that it's their first project with Evil Within. That's something that they can learn from and then improve on stuff that they did wrong going into 2.
Right.
Whereas other series, they do the first game and then they just completely change up the formula and make it worse for the second one. BioShock.
Right.
But
yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll work out. Hopefully you could actually beat the game.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on into another spooky game, Until Dawn. So I'll kind of lead us off with this. This is not a typical game for me. I do not play scary games. I knew about this game, though, being scary. And about Until Dawn is that it's like a Telltale game. It's kind of like a decision-making. You go around and there's kind of quick time events. You decide. So let me just tell you a little bit about it in case you're not aware of it. The developer is Supermassive Games. It was released in August of 2015. The background of this game is that you play as 8 different characters. It's 8 teenagers who go to this cabin a year after 2 twins, Hannah and Beth, are killed by some crazy circumstance. I don't know if you remember the opening cutscene or the opening part where they're running through the forest and then like one of them trips or something like that, and then they, they fall down the rocks, and it's a nasty death. But so that's what happens. These twins die. So then these groups of friends go back to the cabin a year later, and the whole group has a dynamic to it. You got the preppy girl, you got the jock,
it's all the cliches.
Yeah, you got all the cliches of teenagers, and he's going out with this girl, but she likes this guy, and you got all these different relationships going on. So, and you play as all these different characters throughout the game, where the whole goal of this game is to have all 8 characters survive until the morning, until dawn. So that's where the name comes from, Until Dawn. You want them to survive as long as you can. And you just basically go around. They set you up in the scenes, and you go around, like, you can investigate different parts, and it'll tell you more information about, like, hey, this is, like, hey, why is there blood here? Let me investigate this. And then, like, you kind of lead into more sequences. And there's so much going on in this world. Like, there's, like, a murder. There's, like, a ghost aspect to it. Like a
supernatural.
Yeah, supernatural is the word I was looking for. Like a supernatural thing to it. Like you don't really have a firm grasp of what is going on at this cabin. There's a lot of mystery throughout the game, a lot of twists and turns. And for me, like, that's what kind of kept me interested. I'm like, this story is really neat, and I love the Telltale aspect of it, where I'm making the decisions, and the decisions were so much more serious than a Walking Dead decision, because you're trying to get all these people to survive, and you could either have all possible outcomes of them surviving, or you could have all of them die, and basically, like, I don't know, you wouldn't call it failing the game, but that's just the ending you got. All died.
Bad ending,
just that's the ending that you would come up with, because there's so many different endings. So Matt, tell us a pro that you liked about Until Dawn.
I love the structure of it. It's like super addicting to me. It had I don't know if any of the listeners here have played games kind of like Heavy Rain. Mm-hmm. It had kind of this vibe of you move your character, like everything's hyper realistic. So you kind of move your characters in in like a designated environment, and then you just kind of do whatever you can within those limits that the game's giving you, and then just making those choices, having such interactions with the different characters and when they're talking to each other in those conversations. And it's so engaging because the game is like motion captured, so the actors in the game, like all the animations look amazing, so you can really see their expressions and stuff on their face.
Speaking of Hayden Panettiere,
Panettiere or
yeah,
something.
whatever.
Yeah.
She's actually in the game, and you could tell it's her.
Right.
It looks just like her.
Right, exactly. And there's the guy from what is it? iRobot or Mr. Robot?
iRobot.
I think
iRobot or Me Robot, something like that.
It's on that TV show.
Yeah.
But he's one of the characters too. I think there's some other like famous characters in the game, actors in the game too. But yeah, like their interactions and like you were saying, kind of the decisions you have to make. And sometimes I think it's always like a timed decision, you know, like you're against the clock trying to figure out, should I go this way or that way, or should I answer this way or that way? And you don't know what effect it's going to have later on in the game. And that was a huge pro.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. And one thing that you kind of said that I want to talk about, because it's kind of one of my cons, the little thing that you just said. You said about the decisions and you didn't know the effect that it would have on the game. That was kind of a con for me, because I felt like at times there would be a minor decision, but the outcome would be death. You know, like
huge.
Yeah, like I would make with one character. I think his name was Mike. I felt like with him, like it was you made so many decisions with him, and like he would just consistently, like he would live through most of it. Like he was a main pivotal character through it, but other side characters, you make a decision to either like grab onto a rock or grab onto the tree, and if you grab onto the tree, he dies. Boom, it's over. Yeah. You know, like there was just it was an instant death decision where I'm like, there was one decision I could have made to save that guy.
It's just left a chance.
Yeah, like it's just kind of annoying, because then you have the decision to either go back, reload it, and do it again if you want to have the outcome of everyone surviving. But I didn't care. I mean, that's part of the game. And like if I had all of them die, then I had all of them die. So that was a little bit of a con for me. So I just want to hit on that since you already talked about it. I want to talk about my pros a little bit. The story was not predictable at all for me. I'm not a horror guy or anything like that, so it's not like I know a lot of horror background where I'm like, oh, here we go. Like I know what's going to happen here. Whenever a scene started and I kind of had an idea, I'm like, oh, something's going to happen. And then, you know, I started to get a little scared and look around the room and not really want to look at the screen. But I did get that kind of sense, but it was never really like, all right, when's it going to come? It was pretty unpredictable, which was good. So I already said a little bit about a con. I have a really big con that I want to hit on, but I want to go ahead and let you talk a little bit about a con that you have.
I think a con for me was just, again, some kind of, like you were saying, I totally understood that, where some of the decisions you make were just totally up to like chance or luck, that you had no idea what the outcome was going to be. And then the other thing that I had a con about was just, there was some like issues with the game sometimes for me, where like, because some of these things are timed, or there's kind of like quick time events that happen where you have to, you know, press triangle really fast or something. And sometimes I felt like I was hitting the right button, but it wasn't registering in the game, so it would come up saying I missed that button prompt. And then, you know, something bad would happen to somebody, and I just got really frustrated with that, because I felt like I hit it on time, and the game just wasn't. It was like the game was going too fast, and it like couldn't keep up with what I was hitting. Yeah,
I know. I had the same thing happen to me. There was a lot of rock climbing sequences where that happened to me.
Yeah, or just like, I think there's one, spoiler alert, I think there's like one scene when you're like running through a forest and you're dodging branches and stuff, so you have to hit different buttons to like duck or like jump, and if you miss it, the person like falls, and then it's not looking good. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, those are pretty minor cons. It's just little things that, you know, it wasn't game breaking. I wasn't like, oh my God. But I do have one big con that I want to hit on, because this really hurt the game for me. And the con, I don't want to talk about spoilers, but the con for me is the final decision in the game. And I'll just say, the final decision you make, I'm going to tell the listeners now in case you're going to go play this game, the final decision you make could determine if you have 4 people survive, or if you have all 4 of those people die at one decision, and they did not make it clear on what would happen. Because when I did the final sequence, I was unclear of the directions. So I'm like, okay, well, what does this do? And then I had 2 of my characters die in the final part because I'm like, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, that was not very clear that doing this would cause this to happen. I'm trying not to talk spoilers, but hopefully you can remember what I'm talking about, where that decision. But that drove me crazy because I did so good up to that point. I think I had up to that point of the livable characters, because there are characters that there's absolutely no way that they will survive, and it happens early on. But
just doomed.
Yeah, but of the survivable characters, I had like 6, I think, maybe 6 of the 8, maybe 6 of the 7, whatever it was. I think I had almost 6 of them, and then in the final decision, 2 or 3 of them died, and I was like, well, that stinks.
I think you had more people left alive than I did, because I remember at that final sequence, it like wasn't as big of a deal to me because I had like a lot less people alive.
Yeah, it drove me crazy. So let's just hit our overalls here. My overall is 7.5. I thought it was a really, really good game, but I'm not much of a horror guy, so it's hard for me to say like, man, that was a really great game after playing a horror game.
Yeah.
But this was close, but that final decision really hurt it for me, so I'm gonna hit it with a 7.5.
Okay, I was a little bit higher. I went for an 8. I bumped it up to that great. I would absolutely welcome another game like this, even if it was a different type of story or something. But I just love these style of games, and I would do anything to kind of support them to continue to make these types of games.
Yeah, well, they did come out with the DLC, right? Or was that just the VR they came out with?
Yeah, I think it was like some VR, and it was like some on-rails kind of shooter thing.
I don't know if they came out with a separate one, because I'm not...
You know what they might have? I'll have to ask. I know one of our listeners, Tim, he's a huge Until Dawn fan, so maybe that's something I can ask him.
Oh, nice. So Tim, right into the show. Tell us all about it. All right, and if you're interested in this game, $20 at GameStop. Again, it's from 2015, so you could probably find it cheaper anywhere. So let's go ahead and shift gears into our discussion topic, the state of the superhero genre.
Yes.
So superhero genre, this has been just a huge part of, my life. I've always been into comic books and superheroes and all that stuff. So superhero games is something that I'm always on the lookout for, and it just seems like as of late it's been a little bit disappointing. So I just want to kind of go through some titles, important superhero games for me, and I'm going to ask you a question, Matt, about these games, all right? So I'm going to fire through this list real fast and tell you the release dates. All right, here we go. X-Men Legends 1, September 2004. X-Men Legends 2, September 2005. Ultimate Spider-Man, September 2005. Ultimate Alliance, October 2006. That's a big 2 years right there.
That is a big 2 years.
That's a really good 2 years. I mean, we were living good then. And then Batman Arkham Asylum, 2009. That's a big game. Arkham City, 2011. Arkham Origins, 2013. Arkham Knight, 2015. Now, of these games that I just listed, Matt, what is the common theme about those games?
Common theme.
What is the similarity between all of those games? And I'm not talking about, well, this one's a DC, that one's a Marvel. No, I'm not talking about that. What about those games did you notice?
I know X-Men Legends and Ultimate Alliance, and they're all like part of a series. I don't know.
What are they not, though?
They are not
based off a movie?
Yeah, that's true. Yep, there you go.
They are not based off a movie.
Original stories,
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. They are all original stories, not based off of movies where it's just a crummy, let's try to get some money and make like all those Spider-Man games when like Spider-Man 1 and 2 came out. I had a PS2 Spider-Man game that was just pure trash. So, I mean, that's the thing right there is it's not based off of movies. These are original stories. There's no... movie scenes and stuff like that in these games.
Right.
So I'm gonna turn it over to you right now, Matt.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, those are great because they were able to give you original story, but then also include the fanfare and the Easter eggs. It was really cool to find within those. I know, especially in the Batman series, there's stuff everywhere that you can find like hidden. That's really cool from the DC universe. I'm gonna talk a little bit. So you were saying how those games succeeded and did really well. I'm going to kind of say why that was so nice to see because we had for a long time, superhero games were not doing so well, and there's actually some superhero games are considered some of the worst games of all time, just a video game period. Yeah, so I'm just going to name off a few. There's actually a lot, unfortunately, that are really bad, but I'm just going to name off a few here. So he talked about X-Men Legends. That was a game that we played and loved. But then there's a game called X-Men Destiny that was actually released in 2011 on the Xbox 360. It's pretty fair to say that we were having some high hopes for this game coming off the high of, X-Men Legends and Ultimate Alliance. This game just didn't come out to what it was supposed to be. Ended up with a 47 Metacritic score, which is just very, very poor. Some people calling it unplayable. And then kind of going into the Batman universe, like Connor was saying, there was a game called Catwoman, came out in 2004 for PS2.
I remember
46.
That game. I remember that
46. Yeah, 46 Metacritic score.
Was that off of the Jessica Alba Catwoman? Was that a cash grab? That might have been a movie game.
I think it was based off a movie, yep. And then we had Superman Returns, which was in 2006 on the Xbox 360. That was a 51 overall Metacritic score. And then we have the ultimate bad superhero game of all time. It's called Superman 64 for the Nintendo 64. It came out in 1999. There's not even a Metacritic score for this game, but IGN gave it a 3.4 out of 10. Many people consider this one of the worst games of all time. So superhero games have not had their share of luck or good ratings. But I guess we can kind of segue that into what we're hopeful for and what the state of the genre is now.
Well, and here's the thing about superhero games is that the licensing for these superhero games is too much of a budget, because now Disney owns Marvel. Disney owns all that, so now you got to go through Disney to get the licensing, and you're paying for all that, and it's too much of a risk now, as much how much games cost to make, it's too much to budget for just to get the license of these characters. And then you got to worry about everything else. Like, I know I just talked about the mid 2000s, 2004 through 2006, and then the Arkham games. But then through there, like after those main games, there's not really a whole lot. Like Ultimate Alliance 2 came out in 2009. A big game though, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, that came out in 2010. That was actually a really awesome Spider-Man game. I don't know if you've played that, but Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions is really cool because they do like 4 different Spider-Mans where you're playing four different storylines. Right. It's really awesome. I really like that game. And then after that, it's Lego games.
Yeah,
Lego
it's been all Lego.
It's been all Legos. Now, next year, there's 2 big games coming out, though. That's Spider-Man by Insomniac, right?
Insomniac, yep.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Spider-Man, that's going to be a good game.
It's looking good.
Hopefully, at least. You can only hope.
It's looking good.
And it's not based off of Spider-Man Homecoming or anything like that, so we got that going for it. And then also, a game's been announced. You might not even know about this, but the Avengers game by Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, they're coming out with a game. I hope next year. They might be launching some more details about that upcoming, but we don't know a whole lot about that game. But that's something. It's something.
Crystal Dynamics is they did the Tomb Raider. So I mean, those games were amazing. So hopefully they can translate that over to the Avengers.
And I trust it too, because Disney, since they own Marvel, they are, giving these licenses, and if you know anything about Square Enix, they also did Kingdom Hearts, which is a Disney-based game. So hopefully they have that relationship going where they're like, hey, we're going to give you our characters, don't mess this up, and they trust Square Enix. Square Enix is awesome, obviously.
It's a tall order. I think a lot of people, it's when you talk about superheroes and you get into the comic book world, a lot of people are very defensive and guarded about what they do with these characters, when they do make a new story or an original story. So it can be really tough for a developer to make a game that's going to be widely accepted.
Yeah, it's a huge risk taking on a superhero game. Plus, you got to think about it. All right, so a superhero that could range in talent from Spider-Man to a superhero like Nightcrawler, where all he does is basically
Right.
just disappear? Like, do you
Yeah.
when you sit down and you're like, okay, we have to make a $50 million game. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna base it off of one character, or do we go for more of an Ultimate Alliance
Right.
deal
Try
where
to
we
include as many as we can.
right? Because how do you make a game based off of other characters other than Spider-Man and all those, Iron Man, stuff like that, where they could head up a game, you know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
Other superhero games, though, have been extremely successful outside of the licensing, is just like games like Infamous and a couple other games very similar to that, where they have the superhero powers, but they're not a licensed superhero.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
just an offshoot. So it's a huge risk. I'm just hoping that this Avengers game really comes through, especially with
Yeah.
Square Enix. And it being Avengers, that tells me that maybe it's going to be, kind of like an Ultimate Alliance, but maybe third person, not like an top-down
Yeah.
view. Like it could feel like Tomb Raider, but be playing as Wolverine and Iron Man
That would be really cool.
and Gambit. Like, that would be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
So, do you have any final thoughts on the superhero genre before we move on to some news?
I'm just hoping that with Spider-Man and then with this new Avengers game as well, that hopefully they can kind of pave the way for maybe some new ideas or fresh ideas that might help keep these genres going and make it to where, you can make a more just like how the Avengers series has gone in the movie world, kind of make it more realistic, make it more serious, make, like, I know there's comedic elements obviously, but kind of have a more realistic take on it instead of all the only superhero stuff we've been exposed to recently is just, like you said, kind of Lego games. So
Right.
being able to have a more realistic kind of raw game, maybe that's something that's rated teen or mature even, would be a nice refreshing take.
I've never played the Batman Arkham games for whatever reason. It just never piqued my interest enough. But going real quick back to those 2000 games, X-Men Legends, Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Alliance, those are some of my favorite games in general. Not just superhero games, but my favorite games within that 2-year period. If we can get back to that, like if this Spider-Man game and this new Avengers game, and then, some other people are like, wow, like superheroes are back in a big way, then they get on board. Like, this could be, I'm hoping this can get something going.
Yeah, could open the doors here.
I hope. All right, so let's move on to some news story. Big news story I want to talk about was the Sony Paris event was yesterday, Monday. And they did 3 big trailers. They did God of War, they did Last of Us, and they did Spider-Man. So we're going to kind of just go through and tell us our opinions on those 3 trailers. I'm going to talk about the God of War trailer first. Did you notice something in the God of War trailer? They showed gameplay, but did you notice anything about that gameplay?
It seemed extremely scripted.
And
I know that.
what did you... The big thing I'm getting at, though, is it's not a fixed camera.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, that's huge. That's their huge selling point. Yeah.
It was
You
gigantic.
can actually rotate the camera.
Yeah, it was a third-person camera view. That is amazing. The God of War 3 fixed camera drove me crazy the second time I went back and played that game. Absolutely crazy, that fixed camera. And
That's
Metal Gear had the fixed camera too in past games, but it didn't bother me as much. But the God of War 3 fixed camera,
It's just frustrating.
because it's so old. Like, the games don't do fixed cameras anymore. Then you go back and play God of War 3 and it's still on that fixed camera. It's like,
Try to make this jump, even though you can't see where you're going.
So what did you think about the Spider-Man trailer?
It continues to look amazing. I mean, that first trailer we saw, I think it was from E3 or maybe before that even. Just like super cinematic, but it had really cool combat. This trailer they released again is just kind of more showing the story. They're showing it more as Peter Parker, like his side, instead of being in the suit. It looks really good. It looks like all the characters and everyone, like the animations are done really well. So I can see myself really getting immersed in that game. I don't know if they've mentioned much about if it is like a complete open world or anything like that. So we'll have to stay tuned and see. I can't imagine it not being. That'd be pretty disappointing, I would think. But right now they're really just showing off kind of the campaign storyline of it, and it still looks really good.
Yeah, that game definitely looking good. I'm not worried about that game at all.
Yeah.
The last one I want to talk about is The Last of Us. That was a trailer.
Yeah.
What did you think about this? I'm a little like it didn't really show us a whole lot, but it was really cool.
Yeah, I guess it just showed different characters that I don't know if you're gonna run into them or be able to play as them. I don't know how that's gonna work, but yeah, it just showed a different group of people that someone was in trouble, they were gonna get hung. It's a pretty brutal trailer, like a lot of violence and gore and stuff like that. So they were kind of showing off that a little bit. The game looks as good as ever, kind of up there with like Uncharted 4 type visuals, which makes sense because it's Naughty Dog. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think I still liked it a lot, but I think it would have been nice to see Joel or, just to see what they were up to too. But I guess they're trying to keep that a little more under wraps. But
yeah, I don't want to see too much,
Yeah.
As of right now, like I'm good.
Right.
I wouldn't.
I know
don't
it's coming out.
Yeah, like I don't think
Yeah.
I'd want to see anything else, just because like why? And I'm doing the same thing with this new Star Wars movie. I haven't watched the trailer. I don't want to see the trailer. I just want to go
Right.
into the movie, not know anything, and just be amazed.
Exactly.
I don't
Yeah.
want to see like possible characters and stuff like that. I don't want to see that. I just
Right,
want to
yeah.
just go in with a fresh mind.
Spoilers. Yeah.
Right. It's not even spoilers. It's just kind of knowing what it's going to look like. I just
Right. Exactly.
completely fresh, and that's kind of how I want to go into Last of Us and God of War. So the
Yeah.
last thing I want to say about the God of War trailer, though, when I was watching this and they were showing gameplay, I'm like, man, like what am I watching right now? Because I'm just so used to God of War being that fixed camera where he was doing all the same moves that he
Yep.
would do, like the square, triangle. But like it just looks so different from a completely third person perspective. So that's cool. So one more news story I want to talk about before we move on is PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds has been announced for Xbox One, an actual release date, which I want to say it's December 13th. I believe it
12th or
was
13th maybe.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's a huge game. I mean, on PC. That's probably the most popular game right now, I would say, on PC.
Easily.
Yeah, and that's a huge pickup for Xbox.
I also saw an article today where the developer of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds was like, I don't want to win Game of the Year. There's been so many other better games that have come out this year, because I think, everyone's pretty aware that when the Game of the Year comes around, PlayerUnknown's is going to be in that conversation because of the popularity that this game has created. Twitch
It's a
is
simple
on
game.
Twitch is on fire because of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, so they have a legitimate case. I know Legend of Zelda and Odyssey obviously are front runners, but PlayerUnknown's, you never know about that kind of thing where they look at it from an industry aspect of like, well, look what they're doing to the gaming industry right now. Like they're
kind of open up some doors there.
Right. So it'll be interesting. Do you think Zelda has it wrapped up for Game of the Year?
I can't see why not. That game was just so, like, I don't know, just life changing, I guess. Like, because everyone always, Zelda has this huge pedigree, but then you have this game come out where it's the same great Zelda gameplay, but then they just put you out in this massive world with so much random stuff to do, and you have so much control over the flow of the game and the progress of the game, and I think it just blew people away. So I really can't see that not being Game of the Year.
Well, I think what's going to happen, I think something crazy is going to happen where Zelda and Odyssey kind of split votes, and then like a number 3, like Horizon Zero Dawn, kind of creeps up more than it really should have been. Just because like so many the votes are going to be split between Zelda and Odyssey, where like Horizon Zero Dawn could be right there on their tail, as like a sleeper. Like I don't know, it's going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to it though, because it's going to be. This is a huge year, and we've talked about that before. But it's been such a great year of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and close down episode 26 with our list. The top games we have co-op together. This has been. Throughout our whole gaming life and friendship, we've co-opted a lot of different games. So let's go ahead and just fire right into it. Matt, how about you lead us off with your number 3?
My number 3 is the Dark Souls series. I can't pick a specific game, but we've played all the Dark Souls games together and DLC except for the newest DLC. We still got to finish that up, but that game is amazing as it is. But to be able to play with someone just makes it that much better because we can just help each other and go back and do other things for each other. So just super fun.
Yeah. My number 3 is the Gears of War series. I think that, we've played. I think we've literally played all 4 Gears games together.
I think we have. Plus the Judgment Day.
Yeah, plus the terrible. We couch co-op that one, Judgment Day.
Yeah,
we actually.
That was terrible.
That was an awful game. That game was terrible.
Forget about that one.
Yeah, but the Gears of War. Obviously, those games are amazing, and then having the ability to co-op like we can, like, just made it that much more fun. Not even just playing that, playing through the story, but playing online too, playing all those different modes. Like, there's so many nights where we've spent 4 or 5 hours playing the Warzone mode and all those fun modes. So that's my number 3. What is your number 2?
My number 2 is the Marvel Ultimate Alliance series. I remember that was another couch co-op because I don't think we even had. I don't even know if we had online capabilities.
No, that was 100% couch.
I remember just being in your basement playing Ultimate Alliance till 3 a.m, and then I'd fall asleep and you guys would make fun of me. So
because the computer or the controller on.
It would say it disconnected.
Yeah, controller disconnected icon would come up, and we'd all look around, and then, there's Matt sleeping. His controller's disconnected. All right, my number 2 is the Dark Souls / Bloodborne games. I just bunched those into one. Yeah, like exactly how you said it. Those games are awesome, and then playing them, and not even just like playing the games, but going through the frustration together, and just having those moments of just like, this is impossible, and just being
it's not happening.
And just like laughing together about it, like how hard it is, and crazy enemies coming at us, and they're just great times playing those 2 games. So go ahead and hit us with your number 1.
My number 1 is the Gears of War series, like you mentioned earlier. Gears of War has a super special place in my heart, and then that just being able to co-op together just kind of pushes it up to the next level because I love games that grip me that much, but that I can also share and play with someone else. So,
yeah, my number 1 game is Ultimate Alliance. I can't believe we had all 3 of the same games, just a different order.
Wow,
it's pretty unbelievable. But yeah, my number 1 is Ultimate Alliance. When I think of co-oping games, I think of Ultimate Alliance. I just think the times that we had. With everybody playing those games, it was just the perfect co-op experience. And just for the listeners, like these aren't the only 3 games that we've played. I started a list when I was trying to think of this, so I just wrote down all the games I could think of. Just the games I could think of off the top of my head that we've played together was the Warriors, the game by Rockstar on the original Xbox. We played that. Yeah. All the Gears games, Ultimate Alliance, Resistance 1 and 2, we played together. Halo, I don't remember the exact Halo games we played. I know we played Halo 4 because we complained about it the whole time.
Yeah.
All the Left 4 Deads, X-Men Legends, the Dark Souls games, and you probably don't remember what we played, Lego Marvel together.
I do remember that, yep.
And that's not even counting the games that we just switched controllers. Like, here, you do this level, I'll do that level. You do this level, I'll do that level. Like, we did that all the time, too. Even with sports games, we did that with, where we'd play, like, the campaign, like NFL Street. I remember we did that.
Yeah.
But, a lot of games to co-op, and then, there's still plenty to come. So that was episode 26 of the LAN Partners Podcast. Please leave a comment like, what was the username? Stronglikemountain did. We love any comments that we can get.
Yes, please.
We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please take us with you on the go, listening to us on the way to work or at work, while you're cleaning the house on the weekends, while you're out at the gym, running on the treadmill, whatever you're doing. Take us with you. Tell your friends about us. And thank you so much for listening. See you next week.